Hey everyone, it's the Shawn. Welcome to another edition of Women Business Leaders. We're excited today. We have Heather Havenwood joining us. She is all about being a sexy boss, embracing your sexy in business. So we'll bring some fun themes out today about how to bring more of yourself, particularly if you feel like you have those elements to the business world. Also joining me today is my regular co-host, Casey Hasten. Why don't you say hi, Casey?
Hey everyone, so happy to be here with you again today and so excited to get to interview Heather.
Yes, so she is a hiring guru. She helps people get the right people in the right place so they can do the right things for their business and help build that momentum going forward. I'm the Shawn. I'm a corporate lawyer by training, but my focus is on the future of business. So while I help clients with what they're doing now, I also get people thinking about the future. And women, men, us all working together in business is so critical to our future, which is why we need to think about the things we're going to talk about today, and particularly with some of the recent stuff with the Me Too movement and other things. How do we embrace who we are? How do we express who we are without stepping on each other's toes and causing things to be uncomfortable? We'll dive into that a little bit today just to make things fun. Love your comments as we go along. So what are you learning? What questions do you have? Drop them below. You might be watching us on Facebook, might be picking it up on the Women Business Leaders YouTube channel, might be picking up one of our LinkedIn feeds. Wherever you're seeing it, we want to hear from you. What are you learning? What are you seeing? What challenges do you have? We'll try to answer the questions there, or if something bigger, we'll invite Heather back and we'll see if we can talk about it again in more detail. So we want to hear from you. So drop your comments. We want to hear from you. Subscribe, like, keep in touch with us. So with that, welcome to the show, Heather. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So you have a powerful brand. We've been connected online for quite some time now, and Casey admittedly stalked you before the show, and there's a lot of information out of that, Heather. And you talk about really embracing yourself and your self-confidence and your sexiness and just being who you are in business. Why don't you talk a little bit about what that means to you and what it's meant for your business?
That's a great question. It's so interesting when you talk about Me Too movement. And I didn't know, Casey, you did hiring. So by the way, I feel bad because I didn't stalk you properly back. So I want to apologize for not.
You still have time.
Properly. Okay, good. All right.
Stalk me later.
We're longtime friends, so we get time to stalk each other over time.
Yeah. So I feel bad that I didn't stalk you properly. So by the way, it was interesting because I just had an interview yesterday with ABC News, and that's exactly the question she had. She's in New York, and she's like, "I'm so surprised you're doing the sexy boss with the Me Too movement, right?" Yeah. And we're going to actually we had a conversation. We're having an interview next week, but it was kind of like really. Here's what I mean by sexy boss. Let me just kind of lay it down so people can get the groundwork. So going back to Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, which was a book that was written in like the 20s and 30s, which was about
I'm reading that right now.
Oh, okay. I've read that book since I was like 17. But if you look at the number one chapter that's not read in that book, people like skip over it. They like ignore it. It's called Sex Transmutation. Sex Transmutation is one of the most powerful chapters in that entire book. And what it says is that our sensuality, our sexuality, our love, our sexuality, period, is our strongest energy, period, as human beings, period. And so what happens is people try to ignore that or try not to cover it up. And for myself, when I was 21 in corporate America, I wore like black heavy neck sweaters and gray outfits and flat shoes. And you didn't even know I had boobs. And so I was constantly trying to cover up that I was a female. I was trying to cover up that I had women parts. And I thought, I need to be a man. And so I disagree with that now. I kind of came full circle about how do you be what I call sexy is understanding sex transmutation, which in the men's world, we call that charismatic. In the woman's world, we call it be, or how dare she, right? And so what I'm trying to do is kind of connect that piece is that it's a sexual energy, and the boss part is owning all areas of your life, like all areas, financial, health, wealth, mental, mindset, all areas of your life.
Yeah. Well, what I love about your work is you don't hide elements, right? I mean, we're all human beings. I mean, men and women are built differently. You can physically look at a man, you can look at a woman. A lot of my work, my TEDx talk and other stuff looks at research where we differentiate men and women. We behave differently too. Not only do we look different, we behave differently, right? So I start from the point of, the genders are different, our styles are different, but how do we make them play together nicely? What I think I like in your work a lot is you bring all the elements together, right? You don't say, hey, let's just forget about the fact I'm a woman. Let's hide that I'm a woman. No, let's embrace what we have. Let's bring it to the table and let's build from there, right? It's a foundation. It's the start of the offering. It's the start of what you bring to the world and how you help the business world.
Yeah, I agree with that, and just kind of wanted to take a different view on it just a little bit. I've been involved in a bunch of different conversations in the last 2 weeks, and it just happens to be that the people that are in the room have businesses that are focused on an avatar of a man, which is fine. Yeah. And what I said to them is, have you ever taken the same information and focus it on female? Because the information itself is not gender based. They just choose to focus on men. And they said, well, women don't like whatever they said. It was a lot of like, women are interested in finance and stuff like this. And so I was like, you're wrong. I bet if you did a survey of your list, even though it's geared towards a man, you probably have 20-30% of the people on your list are females. And I find that there's not very many females on your team. You might want to consider, it's not about right or wrong. It's about understanding females. We are interested in the same things: health, wealth, love, relationships, having a great life, right? We are interested in making money. We are interested in that. We just think differently in the world we communicate. So you have to sell them differently. And so why are there not women on the team to have that viewpoint, to have that conversation, to have that different viewpoint?
Yeah.
And I think that's just what's happening now. And what I'm big on is just awareness, and I think sometimes it comes across as I'm being like, gender bias or something. I'm not. I'm more like, let's bring an awareness to it. We buy just differently, but we're also huge buyers. We're a huge buyer of we're just a huge buyer segment. And I think that's the conversation. And it's still happening today, but at the same time, there's also the negative side of it. It's just happening. This happened in December 2018, which is only a couple months ago, where I had literally someone in the publishing space say, Heather, you're not valuable. I was never invited to these little masterminds that the group was always doing. For 10 years, I was part of this group. And I was like, well, why are you guys never invite me? I'm like, kind of just sick. It's kind of stupid, but whatever. And he said, it was because you have no value. And I go, why do I know value? Is it because you have women entrepreneurs? There's no value in that.
Wow.
So that happened like 6 months ago. I'm not lying. So like people still have a perspective that female entrepreneurship is like, oh, that's like, go play with the Barbies or something. Yeah. And so I really want to bring an advocacy and awareness to it's about understanding that there is no gap between two genders. We just want the same things: health, wellness, having a great life. I mean, we want the same things for our families and our friends and everything else.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think the goals are very similar. I think by statistical studies show men and women will react differently, but the fundamental core human goals are the same. We just bring different skill sets, different abilities to the table that should be celebrated. And it's just something that we foundationally build upon as we go forward in the business world. So that's kind of my take on it. The Me Too movement has been interesting because I think it's a lot of men in particular have been confused because they don't know what to do, right? They don't know how much to erase. And, some men, and it really sickens me, but men have reacted by saying, well, I just won't hire women. There was a study that came out not too long ago, said men won't mentor women because they're afraid of claims, and so unfortunately, one of the side effects now is this polarization, right? A lot of men are saying, I just don't know how to deal with this. I'm just out. And so, Heather, what advice and tips do you have on that for people just to work together? You have any ideas on how, we can just kind of set aside some of this fear and move forward?
It's a valid question, right? And I don't
It's not an easy question either. So this is a live show, folks. We just put people on a spot and we drop it.
And solve the world hunger right now, Heather.
Exactly. And I know these aren't the things you have immediate answers to, just ideas and things that might help maybe somebody in the audience.
Here's my one piece I would start with in understanding the gender conversation, which is acknowledging, let's speak from a male's perspective, acknowledging women think differently and we buy differently. But that's just the first thing. And so inside of a conversation of a company or corporate or buy, mentoring, things like that, you can say like, hey, I want you on my team because I know you have a different perspective on the same products and services. And I think that just starting there, like you have a different viewpoint. Maybe you're different, not only different gender, but you're also maybe 20 years younger than the average person on the staff or whatever. Like we want to have your viewpoint on different perspective, and I think that's just allowing that kind of collaboration, not making anyone wrong It's just having a different viewpoint. I think that's where it starts, where people freak out, or I see people freak out is like, oh my God, I said this thing and I'm so sorry. Like I literally had someone say to me like 2 weeks ago, I was somewhere, I don't even know what they said, but they literally went out, they were like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I think that was kind of part of the Me Too movement. I'm like, chill. Like, I don't even remember what you said. Like, it's all good. You know, I think that somewhere along the way, not me, like they have gotten really overly sensitive versus just like, we're people, you know, and we just have a different viewpoint on things because of how we feel every day. You guys aren't flooded with hormones every 28 days. Like, you know what I mean? Like we're just have different viewpoints. It's not right or wrong. And I think just starting with that perspective is great. Now, what I love about the things that have happened out of it, there's been some really cool movies that come out, Netflix and Hulu and Amazon, that have really focused on the female strong badass. I just watched the series What If with Renee Zellweger.
Okay.
Y'all,
I've not seen it. Not familiar.
Haven't either.
Haven't? Oh my gosh, it was awesome.
That good, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they took a particular scenario, which I remember. Y'all remember this movie in the 90s. And that, would you sleep with my wife? No, I'll give you the $1 million for the business if you I get to sleep with your wife.
Yeah.
Right. They reversed it. So she was going to give $20 million or $80 million to this woman who wants to, like, change the world with her biotech company, but she wants to sleep with her husband. Right. So it's a whole like reverse dynamic. It's a really interesting, movie because it flips all that on the heel. They're in San Francisco, they're in biotech. It's very technology based. And Renee Zellweger plays the part of the multi-millionaire who wants to give this money and sleep with her husband. So, and I think it's an interesting dynamic, right or wrong, like it or not, doesn't matter, non-political. But I think that right there is just kind of bringing things to the forefront of an awareness. And I think that's what we're in right now.
Yeah. Casey,
Well,
go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think women need to be okay in their own skin as well. And that's one of the things that really drew me to you, is that you do embrace that and that you're like, I am a woman. And here recently, I have been really stepping up to that as well, inside the business that I'm in, building an executive brand, but at the same time, standing up and being noticed and not being ashamed of that. Because before I would be like, okay, well, I'm doing this, maybe they'll notice it. And now I'm like, hey, look at me, I'm doing this. And it's really changed the whole dynamic within the company that I'm doing that. So I think we need to stand up and, and own who we are.
Yeah, I think also being willing to have challenging conversations, right? I mean, I just recently, like I said, I was in Baltimore and just was in some deep conversations with some people. And I would definitely say 3 years ago, maybe 4, I would not have brought up what I brought up. But I literally, to the, head people, was like, I noticed there's no female leadership in the entire company.
Yeah.
And I was like, and they just were like, and so, and it wasn't like a dogma or in your face. It was just, it's one of those things when you're about to buy like a red Lexus, you see all the red Lexuses kind of thing, or, you know what I mean? So it's more like, I just notice.
Right.
And it's a question. It's not an attack. It's just like one of these, like,
it's a fact, right?
Yeah. Another one that I noticed, people didn't notice this. Dean Graziosi and Tony Robbins and Russell Brunson did this just huge, massive launch. I'm sure you've seen it. It's just huge launch. I heard massive success, and I wish them the best. That's awesome. So I went through the entire funnel and all the videos, because that's what I do. I'm weird that way. I follow stuff and go through stuff. And then so Dean Graziosi, I was studying the model, and Dean Graziosi's video, like the second one where he kind of like a resell, and I'm looking, right? Again, it's that looking for the red Lexus. And there's not one female testimonial. There's not one female person that he works with.
Interesting.
Not one single female. Come on, Dean. And I don't think he's doing it on purpose. I think it's the unconscious consciousness, the unconscious component. I saw him speak in January, pre-launch at the TNC Live, and he was talking about masterminds, and he shows this picture, and it's him and Lewis Howe and Russell Brunson, and they're all fishing. It was all masterminds, and it's all men. And he literally had been talking for 30 minutes, and he looks and he kind of goes, we should maybe have a woman I'm sure we have a woman in here, not one woman in this entire presentation. And I don't, again, it's not like he's trying to diss women, because I think Dean's a great guy and I don't see him as like some, whatever. I just think it's like a conscious competence thing. It's almost like I just didn't know I was not doing that kind of thing. So, and when people they attract their same self, they do business with someone they like and associate with, right? So I think that's part of it. It's not against any kind of bro club or any of that. It's more like, let's bring an awareness to the conversation,
Yeah. I think there's a power to that. Casey?
There's a power to that.
So, my lights are going on and off in here. Sorry. So I wanted to ask you, I noticed that you started a mastermind. How long have you been doing your mastermind?
Just recent. And
that's what I thought.
And it's interesting because I've been going to them since 2001 was my very first mastermind that I attended. When I walked into the room, I was the only female. They asked me to go get coffee. I told them, no. Go get your
no. We I don't know. There's a lady in Dallas, Lynn O'Neill, who was on the board of directors at Continental Airlines, and she showed up for her first board meeting, and she had the same experience back in the 80s.
Yeah.
The other board members saw a woman and asked her to go get coffee.
Yeah, so I get it. It's all good. I just kind of laugh at the story. And there's a couple pictures of me online with the masterminds. Like I'm in the middle, and like there's all these guys around me. So, and I love these guys. I love them. They changed my life. So actually, I started my mastermind out of again, kind of one of these, like, I don't know why I'm so hyper aware, but it was an article in Entrepreneur.com magazine. It was written by a guy. I don't know his name. I'm sure he's a cool guy again. And it was the top 10 masterminds in the world for entrepreneurs. And it was Russell Brunson, Dean Graziosi, Ryan Dice, Joe Polish, all guys, And I thought, there's female entrepreneurs out there. And there's men that want to have a viewpoint of a female entrepreneur. Like, there's a gap here. There's a missing gap here. So that's when I started it.
And I have a theory running that, with the way things have developed in corporate America and the upward path, a lot of great women are becoming entrepreneurs where the playing field is a lot more level, right? Because for most of your customers, it's like, well, what are you delivering to me? What value do you add? They don't really care, man or woman. They're like, just give me quality products and services, right? And so a lot of women have exited.
I think looking at copy, so I'm just looking from a publishing perspective, but having females look at copy, having females look at things that touch the customer, we just think differently, right? Mm-hmm. We think differently. We're like, oh, let's make it a little more softer, or let's make it that high touch feel. I don't know, whatever the thing is. But I think just having that viewpoint, I mean, I can see, let's just think of a gift for a second. If Shawn's going to give a gift to his mother, he might be like, throw in a bag with something and no tissue paper, but a woman's going to take the time to maybe put some tissue paper on it, make it pretty, like it's just those little things in the world of business that add value. And I think that's something as small as adding detail to business is where we're at today. It's just where we're at today. Especially where we are in business, we have to be a differentiator, and just throwing things on the wall and acting like there's this thing called 52% of the people on the planet are female, ignoring that is insane. I just had someone recently, I kind of said something, I said, there might be something that you could take your same business, your product, and just make a female version of it. He goes, there might be an opportunity. I don't know. I'm like,
yeah. Exactly.
There's 2% of the world is women.
Right.
Why didn't you just say your business is down? Like, I don't know. I don't even know what to say. I just kind of turned and walked away. But it's also work. You have to work. You have to go, oh, well, how can we take this product and gear it towards more a female market?
Right. It's just tweaking. It's the thinking, right? And that's that additional perspective that makes such a huge difference. So Heather, I know you're doing a lot of great stuff out there. You've got your mastermind. You've got some online training and other things.
I definitely want to hear from Casey. I want to hear her question.
Oh, you want to hear from Casey? Okay, Casey.
Shawn, I talk to you.
What do you want to hear from me? What do you want to hear from me?
Whatever. I just want to, like Shawn and I talk all the
time. I know. But so one of the things that I did want to point out, kind of going back to your point about the difference between women and men, is it's so funny because two things. Number one, I think that although men develop relationships, I think women do it better. I think that we are focused on relationships. And in the recruiting world, that's really one thing I'm trying to bring out with our agency, because there's 100 agencies that do what we do. And so speaking to that differentiator, we have to be different, right? And the way that I believe we're different is by building those relationships first, not just looking for the income, but looking at the outcome as well. You know, I can place you in a job, but are you going to love it? Are you going to call me next year and tell me how great you're doing? And did you get that promotion? And the other thing, kind of going back to the 52% of us are women, when we were recently looking at moving and looking at townhomes, right? And looking at apartments and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, people would automatically talk to my boyfriend about, you know, this. And he's like, you're not selling to me. You're selling to her. Same thing with cars. Same thing with homes. So even if we go to the grocery store, he's like, you're not selling to me. You're selling to her. I'm going to do whatever she wants. So I think it's important that we remember that when we're advertising, that we're selling to the woman, because ultimately she's probably the one making the decision.
Oh, for sure. I mean, in fact, the company I was talking to in the financial space, they said that if they could, they would probably do a survey in their list that a lot of times they think that the female buys the product and then puts it in the husband's name and gives it to them or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not surprised. In fact, the supplement company that I started back in 2015, we grew from 0 to 1.5 million in sales. My business partner at the time, which is now my ex, and he fought me on this for a while because he was like, no, men want this. I'm like, no, that your market's 100% women, because the men come because of the women. That's why in the gym, if I close the bathroom door, I see a huge ad for ED. Why would I see an ED ad in the female bathroom? Because we all know it's the female that picks up the phone and says, yeah, you know, so-and-so is going to come. My husband's going to come tomorrow at 2:00. And then she texts them like, you're going to go to this thing, whatever. And our testosterone, ED, whatever. So it actually is the female that drives the conversation on medical, on health, on a lot of different things. And men just follow suit because they're not as actually aware. They're just, it's not personal. It's just, they're not as aware as much. And I think that's one of the things that men don't understand. They think they are talking to grandpa, they call it the grandpa avatar, but they're talking to the woman who's freaked out about finances, woman who's wants to make sure he's healthy and feels good about himself and, you know, and all that. And I just had a huge consultation with the company Stem Cell business, huge business. And they're doing a lot of great things for their clients in Houston. And we were having this conversation about their client, like their actual patient. Mm-hmm. I said, but who's actually making the decision? And they had to think about it. I go, we all know who, especially because some of these patients come in like 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour away because they're so specialized. I go, we all know who gets their butt in the car. Right? We all know who gets their asses in the car, calls, make sure the map's there. Like, it's the woman. It's the woman who does all that, the wife, the caretaker, the whatever. So they go, yeah, it's true, right? It's usually the men going, yeah, I'm here because she thinks it'll do good. I don't think it's going to work, you know, kind of thing.
Right.
And the female is the one that drives it. And then boom, they have, you know, a $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 patient that they change lives. It's like, if people could actually think who actually is the driver of the buying, it really is female in almost all areas. It's very few areas that women aren't doing some kind of driving of the process.
Oh, I agree 100%. So, Heather, how do people go deeper with you? How do they learn more about you, see your work, get to know about you, and what they can do with you in the future?
Thanks. The mastermind is really important to me. I think it's something that my big growth in 2019 and beyond, where we're bringing together entrepreneurs, and I'm taking what I call the original Think and Grow Rich Napoleon Hill Mastermind chapter and actually using that as it was designed. Because I think masterminds have gotten a name and they become like just group coaching programs. And I'm really creating like the true essence of what true mastermind means, which means if you have 10 people in the room, you know what I mean? And each have had 10 years experience in business in general, that's 100 years experience you're tapping into. So if someone's at the front of the room going, hey, I'm having this challenge with this, you have 100 years experience of high-end business that you're like asking a question to solve your problem with. That's the power of it. That's what he talks about. So the mastermind, the power circle, they can reach out to me via Facebook is probably the best way to do it. You can ask heatherann.com, and that redirects to my chatbot, so they can reach out to me there.
Awesome. Great. We'll go check it out.
Can I just say real quick before we say goodbye, Shawn, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to say that I love that you are referring to Napoleon Hill. This book, and the reason I'm really ashamed that I haven't read it before now, it's like it keeps popping up over and over and over again. So I just want our audience, if you haven't read this book, this is the #1 must read. Think and Grow Rich. Read it many times. Yep, it's I love it. I have mine like tabbed like that too. That's so awesome. I just wrote a blog on that too, but I did it on the auto suggestion chapter. I was gonna just do it over the whole book, and I was like, there's too much meat here. I've got to dig deeper. Yeah,
I love the questions at the back, and I go through the questions in the back regularly.
I haven't got there yet.
Oh,
that's a really good point.
Sorry to be a spoiler, but he's got he's got some great lists of questions back there. They're like, what are you doing? Where are you spending your time? Where are your problems at? It's really great troubleshooting just to run yourself through those questions every once in a while and say, where are my opportunities for growth? I love the questions at the back.
It's actually at chapter 11, the mystery of sex transmutation. It's the #1 underread chapter, and that's because the word sex transmutation in today's language is weird, so that's why, but it's actually about it's one of the most powerful.
I think I'm going to skip ahead to that tonight.
It's pretty good.
Check it out, folks. Yes, drop your comments, like us on YouTube, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications. Women business leaders, make sure you drop us your comments, and then check us out, futureofwomeninbusiness.com. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Heather, great conversation. Everybody out there, pat yourself on the back for doing the hard work. Join us for another episode soon. We look forward to talking to you.